Does Until the Light Takes Us hold up in 2026? Let's find out. What's going on, guys? Buff Metal Justin. Recently, I had rewatched the documentary film Until the Light Takes Us for the first time in years. It's been a really goddamn long time since I've watched it. And a large part of me watching it was kind of like watching it out of curiosity because, you know, everyone talks about kind of the state of black metal these days and whether or not it's like sold out, is it corny, is it whack now, like was it only cool back in the day? And I don't know, man, like I think a lot of stuff, you know, we remember with rose-colored glasses, right? New metal talking to you. This documentary gives you such a good look back on where black metal was at the time. And so I just want to reflect on that a little bit and talk about whether or not I still think this documentary is good. Without further ado, yeah, let's get right into it. So the movie opens with, you know, a shot of Fenris, basically, and the directors interacting with him, and, you know, they kind of have this, like, funny banter, and it sets up, like, almost like an ominous tone for what's to come. And then we get, shortly after that, we get our second kind of main, protagonist, I guess, of, you know, our main character in the film, which is Varg. And a lot of the documentary goes back and forth between Fenris from Darkthrone and Varg from Burzum. They have some interesting things to say about each other. You never really hear those guys say much about each other. You know, they're very tight-lipped and don't seem to like, you know, outsiders very much, nor like talking about themselves too much, which I kind of can appreciate for sure. As you continue watching, we go to Varg's jail cell where he's in there, and he's very interesting in this because he is kind of like, I don't know what else to call him besides like a voice of reason. Everything he says makes you want to listen intently. There's always something about him that's kind of charming and charismatic, but underpinning that is the fact that this guy killed someone. He killed Euronymous, and you almost can't imagine it as you're sitting there listening to him talk. So Varg goes into his childhood. He talks about how, you know, as a kid, he grew up in a very homogenized society that he considered perfect. You know, it was away from things. And when they started putting in like a McDonald's and stuff like that into their culture, he would show up with a BB gun, you know, and his friends to go basically terrorize the business. And again, in a weird kind of way, you can kind of sympathize with it, right? When you think, God damn, man, these American companies and stuff, they just spread like disease, you know, all over the world, bringing it where it doesn't need to be. But, you know, it kind of leans into that. And of course, Varg went on to burn all those churches and stuff. And I assume he doesn't view those churches any differently than he does the McDonald's. You know, so he grew up in that kind of environment, and he talks about that a bit. And it's interesting to hear Varg talk about his childhood. There's another great scene at the beginning where Fenris gets taken off of a train because he's backpacking around tear gas, I guess. And it's like, Fenris, dude, what exactly are you going to do with tear gas? You know, like these guys, sometimes you wonder if they are just like menaces to society, you know, and it was a funny thing to kind of see. Other notable bands that pop up, you get Immortal, man, and they're like comically uninterested seeming, you know, they're just kind of sitting there sipping beers like they couldn't give a shit that they're being interviewed. And when you think of like the persona of like a black metal musician, I feel like they embody like the black metal rock star persona so hard. And they talk about, you know, going, you know, seeing Mayhem with Dead on vocals and stuff like that. So you get to hear some interesting takes there. Also, we get to see some shots of Helvet or Hell, or, you know, the record shop that Euronymous owned. Obviously, they got lots of pictures of that in there. I think it's funny when Fenris refers to Varg as Count Grishnak. I guess the name kind of stuck to Fenris, and you'll notice in the documentary that he calls him that like a couple of times, and it always kind of cracks me up that it really does seem that Fenris really like kind of buys into the whole thing. He believes it, and like there's something very real about it. Some of the classic and memeable scenes are the ones where like Varg is talking about being at the shop back in the day and kind of the posers that would come in. And there's that classic scene of Varg talking about cereal where he's like, oh, I could talk these guys into liking anything. You know, I would say Do you like your cereal crispy or do you like it more soft? So in the middle, you know what scene I'm talking about. I don't even like saying it because it's like doing the scene a disservice because the delivery of Varg is just so funny. Yeah, man, absolutely classic. Then you get to the point in the movie where we follow an artist in his art exhibit, basically, that is like a tribute to Norwegian black metal. And, you know, we get to watch Fenriz walk through it, and basically you can just tell that Fenriz, like, thinks it's wicked whack, you know? He doesn't like it at all. And meanwhile, the artist is kind of, like, hanging in the background trying to see if Fenriz, like, likes it. And they don't really interact, except, like, a little bit. But yeah, it's a weird, tense little scene. Something I noticed watching it this time is that when you're watching Varg talk about how he kills Euronymous, it's funny because he almost seems like he's giving legal talk where he's like, I went here and I believed he had this and blah, 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 blah. And I don't see Varg as a bullshitter at all. Like, that's one of the things I like about him is he seems pretty authentic, but there's something in his delivery here that makes me like, are you speaking legal talk to stay out of more trouble or something? Like, what exactly, like, are you doing, you know? It's very interesting to see. There's another great part where Fenriz is talking about, like, how it's been turned into a trend, and then he kind of goes, well, if anyone is responsible for turning it into a trend, it's not us. But I guess that's what anyone who would be responsible would say. And again, you kind of see, like, yeah, the back and forth of that idea, and it's like, it's a really good take from him. And then you have the whole segment with Frost, you know, coming in towards the end and doing his whole, like, dicing himself up for art's sake, I guess. I don't know, I find that to be, like, the most disturbing part of the documentary. There's such a fine line between, like, art and living your art, you know what I'm saying? And when I see someone doing that, I can only help but think, like, it's total mental illness, and you're just kind of, like, killing or, you know, exploiting yourself for other people's amusement, which I'll just never be able to get behind. It's kind of sad to see. And then there's this scene where he's sitting on a plane and there's, like, a little kid next to him, and the shot just kind of lingers on the two of them for a moment. And it's like this, like, depressing, kind of eerie, like, display of the, like, destruction of innocence or something. Not to, like, you know, overcook the idea too much, but it is, like, it certainly did stick out to me. So yeah, so those are some of the scenes that I really remember sticking out to me when watching it this time. Other than that, man, there's just so many great edits of great either black metal songs like War, when they play War and it cuts to, like, a bunch of chains and stuff and shopping plazas and all this BS that's, like, you know, you would assume Varg thinks sucks and is fucking up his culture. I find that those segments amazing, as well as some of the ambient segments where they'll play, like, I think it's Ulver or something, and it'll just be shots of burning churches and stuff like that. It's the cinematography in this is absolutely amazing, and as is the soundtrack. And it's like the intermingling of those two things that makes me like, God damn, man, I could watch this on loop over and over and over again. This movie is pure metal ambience. You know what I mean? It's very, I find it very, I don't know if it's because I'm nostalgic, but I find it very relaxing to watch, you know? So, you know, I've watched it twice since deciding I wanted to make this video. And man, after watching it those two times, I could watch it a third. And so I guess in summary, man, what I will leave you with as far as Until the Light Takes Us is it absolutely does still hold up. It's such a killer spot-on documentary that I feel like captures the essence of the time and where shit was at when they shot it. And like, as a viewer, just watching it casually, I find it very, like, tranquilizing and, like, mesmerizing to watch and to see, like, you know, the real deal, all the OGs of the genre, you know. So yeah, man, I think it absolutely friggin' rules. It gets 2 devil horns up for me, and I guess that's all I really get to say about it. Have you guys watched it? I think it still fucking kicks ass, and you should absolutely watch it if you have or haven't. You know, sometimes you revisit stuff at different points in life and they speak to you differently. So I'd be curious what you all had to say about Until the Light Takes Us. So until next time, this is Buff Metal Justin. Subscribe to the channel and I'll talk to you soon. Peace. One last little hilarious tidbit. I love that scene where Fenriz is at the bar and he picks up a chick. It's just so
I don't know why that shit cracks me up so hard, but it certainly does. Anyways, good movie.